Welcome to Hustle and Pro Season 2, talking sports in Frisco from youth to pro. Now here's your host, Kelly Walker.
Okay, we are back with Chris Mycoskie. So at the end of last episode, we were running down some of your honorable mention and top 10 so far of sports moments that you've seen in person. We're kind of reminiscing about back when, we could go to sports and watch games. And some of your list is based on your life as a sports broadcaster. And some of your list is based on your life as a lucky kid whose, grandpa was the team physician for the Texas Rangers.
He was, yeah, the original.
The original, and getting to do some cool things with your dad and your grandpa. I mean, you were just telling us about how you're kind of living that kid dream of getting to be bat boy at some Ranger or some MLB All-Star games, and just getting to go to the Cowboys-Bills Super Bowl when you were in 8th grade, and how you covered that for the was it Fort Worth Star-Telegram?
Yeah, I mean, they weren't paying my bill certainly to go out there, but when they knew I was going to go, it's like, well, that obviously has to be what your column is about this week. So,
yeah, I mean, just to be able to have that experience so young is so cool. So no wonder you've built a career around that. So I guess let's keep going and let's jump back in. And I think we're at your top 5. Yeah,
we are.
Okay, let's do
Number
it.
5. And this is an overall week-long experience. It's not just one particular game, but it is the Atlanta Olympics, 1996. How do you narrow that down to just one event?
Right. There's so many. I've never been to an Olympics. I love consuming as much Olympics as I can possibly on TV all the time, every time. So I don't even know what it's like to be there in person with, how spread out it is and how you can get to different events. I don't even know how you know where to be. So how did you prioritize, or let's see, I mean,
I was in high school.
Finishing high school, so probably. So were you there just personally, or were you there still kind of as building some work resume, and how did you cover it?
Oh, no, it was a family trip.
Okay.
And it's kind of funny. My dad took me and my brothers, but then my mom was actually there for work. She at the time was working for the National Weather Service in their communications wing. And they had a big presence at the Olympics, as you might expect, with all the different things that depend on them. Sure. So she was there working, and we were able to spend some time with her, even though we were there with my dad. So it was very cool for everybody to be there at the same time. Everything was a ticket lottery. So I think now it might be a little bit tougher, but back then, so long as you gave them different mailing addresses, you could submit as many applications as you want. So we enlisted the help of friends and family to enter the lottery. And then if they won, then we would pay them for the tickets and go, they would just mail physical tickets to people still back then.
Wow.
So
so the lottery, though, was it basically like you enter for certain events in sports, or it was you get what you get?
No, you're requesting certain events and certain sports on certain days. So, you wanted to go to, it was not the original dream team, obviously, but still the 96 version was still pretty good. Wanted to go to some of those USA basketball games, and we got tickets to 2 of those games while we were there.
Wow.
Got to do some swimming and diving, some beach volleyball. But past that, we were also, it wasn't even necessarily the big stuff. Just wanted to take in some random things, handball, the clean and jerk, weightlifting.
Because it's the Olympics. Everything's a big
exactly.
thing. Everything's cool. Like even sports you don't follow on a normal basis, to be able to go see those weightlifters do their thing. I mean, that's incredible.
Exactly. And, one of the things that we got tickets for that was, I think when we put in for it, we didn't think of the enormity of this event, but it was the only field hockey game I have ever been to. India versus Pakistan. That is the national game of both of those countries. They hate each other, are always nearly at war, and they're playing. I mean, it was to be in that stadium and that energy from all of the people who have roots from those countries, who live in the U.S. now, who are there, or who traveled over. But a sold out football stadium in Atlanta playing field hockey between India and Pakistan.
Wow.
I mean, I'd be hard pressed to find a more intense atmosphere than that.
Did you even know what was happening on the field?
Barely.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I do not know the rules of field hockey. I'm sure that there's some compliments to the sports that, mainstream sports that you're used to watching, but you probably just sat there as an observer taking it all in.
Exactly. I could figure out as much as they were striking the ball and trying to put it in the net.
There you go.
That's as simple as I could get it, but no, that didn't matter. And I have no recollection of who won at all, but no,
doesn't matter to you. Just that experience. Yeah. That's great.
And we rented a house for that whole week, and we're just in the middle of all the action, and taking the trams to all the different venues. Just really awesome. And obviously it's not just the game, it's all of the party atmosphere, and until I was, to bring us down a little bit, unfortunately, but we were there when the bomb went off in Centennial Park.
Mm-hmm.
We had actually been in the park 2 hours prior to the bomb going off.
Wow.
And to know that we were so close to potentially being in real trouble there. And, we woke up I think I woke up actually middle of the night, just couldn't sleep. And I turned on the TV, assuming there would be some replays on from that day. And it's Tom Brokaw talking to the mayor of Atlanta. And I'm trying to figure out what in the world are they talking about, and piecing it all together after that. And, they didn't suspend the games. They went on the next morning, and there was a much larger security presence, but it continued and was a little bit more subdued. But
I'm surprised that there wasn't
the
some hiccup in events, right?
Yeah.
Now I feel like things would get stopped or something, but
I agree.
That's incredible. I mean, that right there, people like me that say, oh, I want to go this and that. That's one of those scary, risky things, especially if you think about taking your kids with you or something.
Yeah.
That's what stops a lot of people. I mean, of course.
Well, I think about that, honestly.
That's a dangerous idea, knowing that there's in large crowds, acts like that happen sometimes. Obviously, they're very rare, but that is a scary piece of it.
No, and a lot of these events that I talk about, they were big things on the world stage that certainly could be a target. And it goes back to when I was playing baseball. Even today, I still, during the national anthem, I pray, and that's part of my prayer, is to protect us from any violent acts like that, so protect everybody in the stadium. And, not just the players on the field, but everybody who's here. And, I certainly know that any of these big events could be a target. And I'm very thankful that they haven't been.
All right. So are we on to number 4?
We are. And it was a bucket list thing that I did with my dad and my brothers this past year, the Army-Navy game. We had talked about it for years, and finally my dad just decided. He didn't even ask us if we had the date free. He just texted us like, I got the tickets. We're finally going.
You'll make the date free, hopefully. Right. Now, do y'all have any family affiliations to Army or Navy, or was this just to be there?
Grandfathers served, as everybody did in that generation. Mm-hmm. So that's why I was rooting for Army. Okay. But no, I mean, I think every football-loving American needs to try to make it to this event at some point in their life. I mean, everything about that weekend in Philadelphia, that game just takes over the city, and you have to get into the stadium way before kickoff because you have to see the walk-on. Every academy student, cadet, and midshipman, they all walk on the field, cover all 100 yards, and it is just a beautiful sight to see. And
that's awesome.
I mean, everything, the pageantry between everything they're doing outside the stadium, all the displays, and obviously everything you see inside and the flyovers, it is Americana at its finest.
Right.
And
it's like,
I'm so glad we were able to go.
other big college football game rivalry games, like you mentioned Ohio State a few times and LSU, and there's just some places you want to be just because of the environment. But it's like that is supercharged with real meaning behind it.
Yeah.
Real family sacrifice and history, and like you said, Americana. I bet that is pretty amazing.
And another reason I had just a little bit more pull to root for Army, the previous season, I was the sideline reporter for the national radio broadcast at the Armed Forces Bowl, which was Army versus Houston. And I got to know the Army coaches a little bit through visiting with them through the course of the week. Obviously got to cover that game, and it's just a huge victory for Army. And the way that they are just so laser focused on just that one game all season long. I mean, I did a post-game interview with Todd Monken, the head coach of Army, and he ends it after his last answer to my question with beat Navy. Like that's 11 games. You still have a whole,
right?
You still have a whole regular, whole off season and all your other regular season games to play, but it's laser focus is that one game.
That's on their mind. That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah, it was very, very cool. And, I really hope I can take my son to that one day. I don't want it to, and, this whole singing second is really their motto all week long. They both go over to their corners in front of their bands and the rest of the student body, and you sing the losing team's alma mater first, everybody respectful, standing there for both teams.
Mm-hmm.
And then the winning team gets to sprint over to its student section, and the losing team accompanies them, stands there respectfully behind as the winning team alma mater plays.
Yeah,
and
that's the respect. The mutual respect that's the unique piece of it too. You don't get to see that everywhere else.
It makes your heart leap into your throat just seeing that and witnessing. It's those commander-in-chief games between Army, Navy, and Air Force, that round robin they play every year. I know the old saying goes, it's the only games where all the players on the field are willing to die for everybody watching the game.
Gosh.
So it's special.
Wow. Yeah. Okay, what's number 3 that's going to top that one?
Yeah, they keep getting better. All right, so number 3, May 1st, 1991. Nolan Ryan's 7th no-hitter.
Your man, Nolan. Okay, 7th no-hitter, 91. Okay.
And he, you said it off the top. For those who have listened to both episodes, as we keep going here, on episode 1, you asked about my favorite athlete, and that's him, Nolan. And I think some people remember this, some people may not. That game actually was not televised locally. So we had the game on the radio all night. The way the Rangers are in my family, we are never not paying attention to the Rangers. So I
grew up with them on the radio, even if they're on a TV. The TV was muted because my dad liked the radio voices at the time better, whatever it was. And so we consumed a lot of Rangers via radio. We weren't in the Dallas market. We were a few hours south.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And so we had the radio going. Nolan had the no-hitter. We kept tracking it. And my dad got home from work, and I think it was the 7th inning when he got home. And he had been listening on the radio on the way home and said, "Let's go."
Did you say the words, there's a no-hitter happening, or do you have to not mention it, right?
No.
Okay.
We know we're a baseball-centric enough family where he didn't have to look at us and say, Nolan has a no-hitter going, we need to go to the stadium. No, he knew we were listening. We knew he was listening, and he pulls into the driveway, gets out of the car, and just says, "Let's go."
So wait, you picked up in the 7th inning and went up there?
Exactly. So we get there, we pull the car up, Old Arlington Stadium, pull the car up next to the ticket box, or, the closest parking spot we could find next to the front entrance, and just walk right in. I mean, everybody who was manning the gates or was supposed to had left their post to go in and watch the game.
And it's so late in the game. I mean, what are they? They're not
Right.
going to be selling tickets at that point. Wow.
Exactly.
I mean,
So anybody could have done it. If anybody would have known nobody's going to be watching the gates, I think anybody that's within 15 miles of Arlington Stadium could have said in those last, few minutes, let's go up to the stadium and try to see this in person.
That's crazy. I mean, you're setting yourself up for big disappointment if on the way there, something goes wrong and there's a hit all of a sudden. But
we live so close that
we
live in Arlington. Exactly. Yeah. Well, we lived in Arlington. We're so close. We knew, all right, if we have to turn around, that's fine. What do we lose?
Yeah.
10 minutes, big deal.
Yeah, it's worth it. It's worth the shot, and it paid off. That is so fun.
Yeah, pull up and run in and see. I think we actually got there in time for the 9th. So saw the last few outs. Jump up and down screaming and
white knuckle 3 outs to
exactly
just can't breathe until you know what's happening every out, every swing. That's so awesome.
So the way I'm remembering it was that he walked in after work at the 7th inning. So he might have gone to go quickly change clothes or something. My dad was a surgeon, so he probably was in either a suit or in scrubs or something. I was like, oh, let me go change into a t-shirt and shorts or something, and we'll run out over there. So actually, I mentioned the game not being on TV. The reason people kind of think that it was is the 9th inning actually was.
Did they cut into it?
Channel 5 picked up the Blue Jays TV feed and ran it live in the 9th inning.
Whoa.
And they didn't have rights to it. They had no permissions. They just thought, this is news. We have a feed. Let's throw it up there. Not thinking about how much stations pay for rights to Major League Baseball. And they got a huge fine after that. I know they had some restrictions on their coverage afterwards, but people, if they were paying attention to the news that night, they got to watch.
They got to see the end.
But we got to see it in person.
How many no-hitters did Nolan end up with?
That was his last one.
His last one. Okay. How many other pitchers have topped that?
Nobody. No. He still his no-hitter record and his strikeout record will stand forever.
Will stay intact.
I would think so.
Yeah. Awesome.
I mean, I'm working on my son right now, but his fastball isn't quite up to speed.
Got a little ways to go. Because is he still like a toddler?
He's 4, yeah.
4, okay.
Yeah.
He
turned 4 on the last normal day. We talked about that on March 11th.
March 11th.
Yeah, I did the Conference USA basketball games for ESPN that day, and then we went over just a few doors down from the Ford Center and had his birthday dinner at Wahlburgers there in the Star.
Yeah.
And went to the pep rallies at the CUSA tournament. Over on the field right outside Ford Center, and had a great night. And then the next day, sports shut down.
Aren't those facilities great? That's my backyard. I can see the Star from my front yard, actually. So we love getting to spend time over there, and all the sports that hopefully will ramp up pretty soon at the Star, our high school football and everything. Our kids are in Frisco ISD, so we are lucky enough to get to be a part of getting to play at Ford Center.
Yeah, if we're still living where we are now, by the time he gets to high school, he'll be part of the new Emerson High School that's being built at this moment. So he would be zoned for independence, but he can give up his Knights affiliation now that there's a new school being built even closer to us.
Awesome. Okay, let's move on to number 2.
All right, this is a 3-day long event. In 1998, I was going to school at the University of Missouri. I had interned for WBAP the previous summer, and they asked me to go cover this, got me a credential. Mark McGwire's chase to break the home run record. I got to see his 60th, 61st, and 62nd home runs as he tied Babe Ruth, then tied Roger Maris, and then got the record for himself at Busch Stadium in St. Louis. At the time, and really throughout most of my traditional student career, I didn't care much about going to class anyway. Yeah. So
who needs that?
I wasn't
history.
I wasn't going to pass up the chance to go to a ball game where history was going to be made. And obviously at the time, you don't know about the PEDs he's taking. You don't know that the record's going to be broken just a couple years later again. At the time, it had stood for so long and looked so untouchable. And, I'm getting to be there alongside these national sports writers just a couple of seats away from me in the press box. And I'm just a college kid, and I feel like I've reached the pinnacle of my career already. And then I get back to the car on the night of the 62nd home run, and the Cardinals are still doing their post-game show. And Jack Buck, who, one of the biggest voices in broadcasting history. I mean, he's called everything. And he's still doing Cardinals games at that point. And they're talking to him about the night and his impressions and all that. And Jack Buck says that was the most exciting sporting event he has ever witnessed. Wow. So I was like, oh man, well, I'm never going to top this.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's saying a lot, because think of all the things he's called, like you said. But even though later on you go to find out, there's an asterisk because of performance enhancing drugs and things. I mean, it still doesn't mean that moment wasn't great for you in the moment. I mean, like this summer we've watched a lot of Lance Armstrong coverage and documentaries, and there's some cloud over it, right? But it's still amazing what they were able to do regardless.
The whole thing was just otherworldly for a baseball nut. And, I'm trying to still do a little bit of schoolwork in the press box in between his at-bats and try not to completely fall behind. But I drove back to Columbia every night except for that final night on the 62nd. It just got to be way too late, and I was just beat from that many days in a row going back and forth to St. Louis. So got the cheapest hotel room I could find at the airport and made my way back to campus the next morning. And I'm sure I missed at least a couple of classes the next day. But again, it's kind of like walking in to 8th grade class after that Super Bowl. You walk into class the next afternoon in Columbia. It's like, you were there. You got to you got to see him hit number 62.
Yeah, class that you missed is forgettable. The game is not.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so we are up to your number one, what you have ranked as your favorite sports moment that you've witnessed in person. What do we got?
The 2010 World Series. It's Game 3, the first ever World Series game played in Arlington. After all of those years going to games at Arlington Stadium, going to spring training, just having the Rangers be such a huge part of our life as a family, the World Series is in our town. And I was at the time still living in Baton Rouge. I was working for the Fox station down there and found a flight to Love Field. I was in DFW for less than 24 hours. But I could not miss that game. I had to be in my hometown to see the first World Series game there. The Rangers won, which was great, but it was almost beside the point.
Right.
It was what was happening in our city.
Right. Just to be there, just for all that lifetime of buildup for you, just to be at the World Series, period. Who were you with?
Sat with my dad.
Okay.
Grandpa was a few rows in front of us.
Okay.
Aunts and uncles and cousins kind of scattered throughout the stadium too. Not everybody made it back. It wasn't like that Ohio State-Oregon football national championship. It wasn't quite to that level. I think probably because there was a little bit less turnaround time, from when you win the AL to when the World Series is starting up. And obviously fewer seats in the ballpark than there are in AT&T Stadium, so a little bit harder to come by. But
you only went to Game 3. Was Game 4 in Arlington also?
Right, and I had, like I said, I had to get back to Baton Rouge, and very quick trip. I flew in, and we went straight to the game. So probably got into Arlington around 5:00 when the gates were opening. and flew back out first thing the next morning. So it was just a whirlwind trip. But again, I just had to be there. And, my dad had been going to games, since they moved there in 1972. And my grandfather was the first team doctor. He actually handed off the job of medical director to my uncle and my dad. They did it as a position starting in 1985. So the family legacy continued for a few years until the Rangers eventually decided to make a change. They actually, I think they sold the Rangers team physician position basically to the official hospital of the team. So the family legacy finally ended there. But
sponsorships take over.
Exactly. It's unfortunate, but
would being at that World Series game probably rank at the top of your dad and maybe your grandpa's list too?
I would think so. I think for Grandpa, I didn't ask him for his top 10 list. I'll have to ask him again when I see him in heaven. But that Ohio State Oregon football championship with all of his sons and daughters and grandsons and granddaughters and everybody around him for that game. Even though he couldn't really see it. I mean, back in 2010, he still had a little bit more of his eyesight, so was taking it in a little bit more. And obviously the Rangers and Ohio State are definitely 1 and 2 in his life as far as affiliations, and just that running just so close to his heart. But I'd probably say that was number 1. And, the fact that he never got to see a world championship, I hate that. And it might never come in my lifetime either for the Rangers to win a World Series. But
I know. I mean, as we sit here and record this is not a good day for the Rangers. We sit in an uncomfortable spot in this shortened season. Well, I can only imagine that game 3, because I was there at the ballpark the series before that. I want to say it was the Yankees series. Mm-hmm. So I want to say right before that. And I won't ever forget that because I just had a baby.
Okay.
My son was born September 21st, 2010. And it was kind of one of those, we had the chance to go, and I probably shouldn't have gone out of the house. I had just had, a C-section and a tiny few-week-old baby. But we went, and I will never forget being in that stadium. We got probably the worst seats we've ever had in that ballpark, but we
just had to get in.
Just to be in and to have that big explosive moment of watching A-Rod strike out to end the game, I think it was just one of those skin-tingling moments. So I can only imagine being there for a World Series game.
No, amazing. And that was the only game I got to go to that whole season because I wasn't living in the area at the time. Yeah. So, incredibly cool. And, just to see Grandpa's face as he looked around and was seeing this in his town. And, I just remember, so many other things with him involving the Rangers. When they won their first division championship, I mean, you would have thought he was, if you didn't, he looked like a college kid running around, dumping champagne on people, just so excited to finally have a title, even if it was just an AL West division.
Yeah.
After all those years of mediocrity and terrible teams for so many years.
But that's why it feels so good when you hang with the team for so long in the bad times. It feels so good when you finally get to the benchmarks that you've just never even seen yet. So, and we've experienced that here in this market. I mean, as Mavs fans and as Stars fans and,
sure.
Cowboys fans, of course, we've had the wins or before I was even around really to be a fan. But that's why it's so exciting for Rangers fans. I grew up, like you said, I was always watching and mostly when they were bad. And so as an adult, when they start getting good, it's really fun to be able to already be on that bandwagon and experience those highs. I'm jealous that you got to experience some of those things with your family. My dad is who got me into baseball and being a Rangers fan when I was tiny. And we lived in Waco. We're from Waco. And so it was a really rare treat to drive up and go to a Rangers game. It was just harder to, get up here when you didn't live here. And we weren't in the know. So those were really special, just regular season games. So we make sure we get our kids out there every year. to kind of keep that tradition going. But my dad passed away when I was in high school. And so we kept the love of Rangers baseball alive. Just my mom, we take her,
Sure.
we go, and my husband, like, we're all big fans, but I never got to go as an adult to some of these like meaningful Rangers games, or, you know, for him to see the new ballpark, which I haven't seen in person either. But so cherish, I know you do cherish, obviously they're ranked at the top of your list. Those moments are just pretty amazing. So thank you for sharing them with us. I love them.
I'm happy to do it. It was really fun, you know, and like we talked about, just looking back at these memories and thinking ahead to when we can do it all again and make new ones.
Yep.
I mean, I love taking my son to Texas Legends games, you know, and he loves doing that, loves going to Allen Americans. We go to a ton of Frisco Rough Riders games, and we were making great memories. They may not be huge events, but the memories are something that we're never going to forget. And I can't wait to get back to those stadiums and
too.
Watching these games being played in a bubble certainly doesn't have the same impact.
I know. I do have to say I was jealous when I saw the Round Rock Classic games of recent, where there's people in the stands watching the games. I mean, I don't want to get into the what you should do or shouldn't do, but man, I was like, oh, that could be us here in Frisco. It should have been us. Hopefully we'll figure it out soon and we'll be there. We're ready.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Chris. So we will link to your Twitter feed and your blog, but I want to say that it's mycoskie.net, right? mycoskie.net.
Newly redesigned.
Yeah, fresh new.
I had time on my hands, as everybody does.
Yeah, fresh new site to go check out, and you can see his list there that we've talked about. So thank you everyone for joining us for this 2-part series of counting down Chris's favorite sporting moments in person, and we will see you next week on Hustle and Pro.